Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the world of rare coins and uncovering the fascinating story behind one of the top 4 most elusive and expensive half dollars ever produced in the United States, the first up, the 1974 Kennedy half dollar. Specifically, we're talking about the 1974 aluminum version, a coin that was never meant to exist in the hands of the public, yet has become one of the most talked about treasures in modern American numismatics. So grab your magnifying glass and maybe that old jar of change from your shelf. You never know what secrets you might be sitting on. Let's get into it to understand why the 1974 half dollar is so significant. We have to go back a little further. The Kennedy half dollar was first minted in 1964, just months after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The coin was introduced as a memorial to the fallen president, replacing the Franklin half dollar, and it was an instant hit. People were hoarding them as keepsakes, refusing to spend them. And even from the very beginning, these coins were more than just money. They were symbols of national grief and remembrance. Over the years, the design of the Kennedy half dollar remained largely unchanged, with JFK's bust on the obverse and the presidential seal on the reverse. But as the 1970s rolled around, something big happened in the background that would set the stage for one of the rarest coin stories in U.S. history. In the early 1970s, the U.S. Mint was dealing with a problem: rising metal prices. Coin production was getting expensive, especially for the penny and the half dollar. So the Mint began experimenting with cheaper materials. In 1973 and 1974, they struck test coins in aluminum to see if this lightweight metal could replace the traditional copper-nickel composition. While the aluminum cent from 1974 became the subject of much controversy and is itself a valuable rarity, a lesser-known chapter involves the aluminum half dollar. In Denver, where the D Mint mark is used, the Mint reportedly struck a small number of 1974 D Kennedy half dollars in aluminum. These were mint purely for internal testing and were never authorized for release to the public. But somehow one of them survived. For decades, collectors had no idea this coin even existed. It wasn't until 2014 that a story broke that would shake the numismatic community. A former U.S. Mint employee's son came forward with a coin that appeared to be a 1974 D Kennedy half dollar struck in aluminum. Immediately, experts and collectors alike were stunned. Not only was this coin previously unconfirmed, but it also represented a mystery. How did it leave the Mint? And more importantly, how much could it be worth? The coin was analyzed and authenticated by third-party grading services, and all signs pointed to it being genuine. The fact that it bore a Denver Mint mark added another layer of intrigue, because it had not been publicly documented that Denver was part of the aluminum test strike program. Now, the numismatic world had to reevaluate everything it thought it knew. But the story doesn't end with discovery. In fact, this is where things get even more intense. After the coin surfaced, the U.S. Mint demanded its return, claiming it was never legally issued and was therefore government property. The owners, of course, had a different perspective. They had inherited the coin and had no reason to believe it was illegally obtained. A legal battle ensued. The coin, which was expected to fetch hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly even $1 million at auction, was seized by the government before it could be sold. It was a heartbreaking moment for collectors, especially because the story was more than just about value. It was about history, legacy, and the mystery of how such a coin escaped the Mint in the first place. The case also raised questions about the fate of other test coins and whether more of them might be out there, waiting to be discovered in someone's attic or old coin folder before the seizure. Experts had speculated that the 1974 D aluminum half dollar could fetch upwards of $500,000 to $1 million at auction, depending on the demand and historical buzz at the time. The coin had everything: rarity, controversy, an unknown mintage, and a backstory filled with drama. Even today, if it were ever legally cleared for sale, it would undoubtedly shatter records in the modern coin market. For context, other rare U.S. coins with similar government involvement stories like the 1933 Double Eagle have sold for millions. The mere possibility that there could be more of these aluminum half dollars hidden away somewhere continues to keep collectors on the hunt. The hype surrounding this coin has increased interest in 1974 half dollars in general, with even standard copper-nickel versions being examined more carefully by everyday hobbyists now. You might be wondering, could you have a rare 1974 half dollar in your own collection? Well, if you come across one that feels oddly light, that could be a red flag, or, in this case, a silver lining. Aluminum is much lighter than traditional coin metal, and an aluminum half dollar would weigh significantly less than the standard 11.34 grams. You'd also notice a different sound when dropped, and a different feel altogether. But here's the kicker. Unless you're holding one of these incredibly rare test strikes, chances are your 1974 half dollar is worth between 50 cents and maybe a few dollars in circulated condition. Still, it doesn't hurt to check. You never know, you could be sitting on a piece of hidden history. The story of the 1974 aluminum Kennedy half dollar is a powerful reminder that even in the modern era, treasures can still be discovered and mysteries still exist. It also highlights the complicated relationship between government mints and the collectors who preserve their products for future generations. Whether the 1974 aluminum half dollar ever reappears on the auction block or remains locked away. The next up, the 1981 United States half dollar. At first glance, the Kennedy half dollar from this year might seem like an ordinary coin tucked away in old change jars or quietly passed over at flea markets. But not all 1981 half dollars are created equal. In fact, some of these coins under the right conditions and with the right mint marks can fetch astonishing prices on the collector's market. Yes, we're talking about half dollars that have sold for hundreds, even thousands of dollars. So what makes one 1981 Kennedy half dollar worth more than a used car? Let's find out. To understand why the 1981 half dollar is special, we need to start with a quick history of the Kennedy half dollar itself. This coin was first minted in 1964, just months after President John F. Kennedy's assassination. The nation was still mourning, and the public support for commemorating Kennedy on U.S. currency was overwhelming. The half dollar was chosen for this honor, replacing the Franklin half dollar. The design was executed quickly and released within a year of his death. Originally minted in 90% silver in 1964, the composition changed to 40% silver from 1965 to 1970, and then to a copper-nickel-clad composition in 1971, which continues to this day for circulation strike coins. However, starting in the mid-1970s and certainly by the 1980s, the half dollar saw a dramatic drop in circulation. Fewer people used them in everyday transactions, and the mints started reducing production. This sets the stage for why coins like the 1981 half dollar became more interesting for collectors. By 1981, the Kennedy half dollar had settled into its copper-nickel clad form, but there was something unique about that year's production. The U.S. Mint struck these coins at 3 different locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Philadelphia are marked with a P, Denver coins carry a D, and San Francisco coins are labeled with an S. However, here's where it gets interesting. No Kennedy half dollars from 1981 were released into general circulation. That's right. Every 1981 half dollar was struck exclusively for collector's sets, specifically U.S. Mint uncirculated sets and proof sets. That means if you've ever seen a 1981 half dollar in circulation, it somehow made its way out of a mint set or proof set, which was not its intended path. This fact alone makes the 1981 half dollar unusual, and scarcity, especially accidental scarcity, is always a key ingredient in collector value. Now let's talk a little more about the mint marks and the difference between circulation strike, uncirculated, and proof coins. The 1981 P and 1981 D half dollars were made for uncirculated sets. These coins typically have a cleaner strike and better appearance than regular circulating coins, but they're not mirror-like like proofs. Meanwhile, the 1981 S was only struck as a proof coin, specifically for proof sets. Proof coins are made using polished dies and planchets, resulting in a highly reflective surface with sharp details. These are struck at least twice, giving them that signature mirror finish with frosted relief. What makes things even more complicated and exciting for collectors is that there are 2 varieties of the 1981 S-proof half dollar, Type 1 and Type 2. The Type 2 version is significantly rarer and commands a much higher value on the market. That's because the Type 2's mint mark is much clearer and more defined, having been redesigned for better sharpness and clarity. Spotting one can be like finding treasure. Let's zoom in on that 1981 S-Type 2 proof half dollar. This coin is the crown jewel of the 1981 half dollar series. It's not just another proof coin, it's a conditional rarity. Only a limited number of 1,981 proof sets contain the Type 2 variety. Many collectors didn't even notice the difference for years. But when they did, demand soared. Today, certified high-grade examples, those graded PR69 DCM, Deep Cameo, or PR70 DCM are extremely valuable. In fact, the Type 2 1981 S half dollar in perfect PR70 DCM condition has sold for over $4,000 at auction. What makes this even more dramatic is that many people still don't know the difference between Type 1 and Type 2, or they don't realize that they might have a small fortune sitting in an old proof set purchased decades ago for under $10. That's what makes this coin such a gem. Not just its rarity, but its ability to surprise even seasoned collectors when it comes to determining value. Condition is everything. A 1981 half dollar that's been scratched, mishandled, or tarnished won't bring much on the open market, even if it's rare. That's where professional grading comes in. Third-party grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Corporation, evaluate coins and assign them a grade from 1 to 70. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin, especially when it comes to proofs and collector strikes. A PR70 DCM grade means the coin is flawless under 5x magnification. It has no imperfections, perfect contrast, and mirror-like fields. This is the level that turns a $10 proof coin into a $4,000 masterpiece. And remember, mint sets and proof sets for 1981 are still floating around, often unopened or forgotten in drawers, estates, and old collections. There's a very real chance that some of these coins haven't yet been discovered, graded, or properly valued, of course. The 1981 S-Type 2 isn't the only half dollar from that year with value. High-grade 1981 P and 1981 D coins also carry premiums, especially in MS-67 or MS-68 condition. While not worth thousands, they can still fetch $50 to $200 in certified slabs. It's also worth noting that because these coins were never intended for circulation, finding a 1981 P or D in worn condition is rare. But when it does happen, it becomes a curiosity. Some collectors seek these out specifically as oddities. Additionally, off-center strikes, double dies, and other mint errors from 1981, while not common, do exist. These kinds of mint errors can command serious premiums, especially when found on coins from a year like 1981, with limited mintage and distribution. So what should you do if you think you have a valuable 1981 half dollar? First, check the mint mark. If it's an S, determine whether it's a Type 1 or Type 2. There are comparison charts and videos online showing the differences, but the short version is this. Type 1 has a more blob-like S, while Type 2 has a sharper, more defined S. If you think you have a Type 2, consider having it professionally graded. If your coin is a P or D, inspect its condition carefully. Does it have full luster? No scratches or nicks? Is the strike sharp? If so, it might be worth submitting to a grading service. And if you have full mint or proof sets from 1981, don't break them up just yet. They may contain other valuable coins or serve as complete collectible sets. In the end, the story of the 1981 half dollar is a reminder that rarity and value often hide in plain sight. This isn't a coin that most people notice. It doesn't have the flash of a gold eagle or the drama of a centuries-old silver dollar. But in its quiet, unassuming way, the 1981 half dollar, especially the elusive Type 2 proof, has carved out a special place in the hearts of collectors. It's a coin that challenges assumptions and rewards those with a keen eye. The next up, the 1995 Kennedy Half Dollar. At first glance, it might seem like just another modern coin, a relic from the mid-90s that many might overlook. But under the right circumstances, a 1995 half dollar can be worth thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. How is that possible? What makes one 1995 half dollar a simple 50-cent piece and another a prize-worthy collectible? Stay with us as we explore the most expensive 1995 half dollar ever sold, the types of errors and varieties that drive up value, and what you should look for in your own pocket change or coin collection. To understand the 1995 Kennedy half dollar, we need to first revisit the coin's origin. The Kennedy half dollar was first minted in 1964, just months after President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963. The coin was created to honor his legacy, and it replaced the Franklin half dollar. Designed by Gilroy Roberts and Frank Gasparo, the obverse features a left-facing portrait of Kennedy, while the reverse depicts the presidential seal. Fast forward to 1995, the coin was still in production, but the demand for half dollars in everyday commerce had significantly declined. By the mid-90s, the half dollar was rarely seen in circulation, and most were produced primarily for collectors. The 1995 Kennedy half dollars were minted in Philadelphia and Denver for circulation, and in San Francisco for special collector-proof sets. While the overall mintage numbers were not particularly low, over 26 million combined from Philadelphia and Denver, the real value in this year's coin lies not in scarcity, but in condition and errors. The 1995 Kennedy half dollar was struck in three primary types. The business strike coins were minted at Philadelphia with a P mint mark and Denver with a D mint mark, while the proof coins were struck in San Francisco and carry an S mint mark. The business strikes were intended for general use, although many were hoarded by collectors and never circulated. The San Francisco issues were struck in much lower quantities and sold as part of the U.S. Mint's annual proof sets. There's also a subset of proof coins known as silver proofs, which are 90% silver and struck to a mirror-like finish. Although none were officially released in silver in 1995, the silver proofs resumed in 1992, but were not common. Most 1995 half dollars are worth their face value or a little more in circulated condition. But once you start getting into uncirculated, high-grade examples and coins with unusual die errors or varieties, that's when prices begin to rise dramatically. Condition is king in coin collecting, and grading plays a crucial role in determining a coin's value. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect, flawless coin under magnification. For modern coins like the 1995 half dollar, the difference between an MS-65 and an MS-68 can be hundreds or even thousands of dollars. For instance, a 1995 P half dollar in mint state 65 might be worth $10 to $20, depending on demand, but an MS-67 could be worth over $100. The jump to MS-68 is where it gets dramatic. Due to the high standards of modern minting, few coins make it to the MS-68 level without any marks, nicks, or surface issues. That scarcity at high grades drives up prices at auctions. In fact, the most expensive known 1995 Kennedy half dollars are not error coins. They're exceptionally well-preserved examples that have been graded MS-68 or higher by PCGS or NGC, the leading coin grading services in the world. So what is the most expensive 1995 half dollar ever sold? The crown goes to a 1995 D Kennedy half dollar graded MS-68 by PCGS. This coin sold at auction for over $3,000. That's right, a 50-cent coin from 1995 brought in several $1,000s because of its pristine condition. No major error, no unusual variety, just sheer perfection in its preservation. Only a tiny number of these coins have been certified at this level, making them incredibly rare. For collectors building high-grade sets, finding a 1995 D in MS-68 is like finding a diamond in the rough. Even more rare are coins graded MS-68 Plus or MS-69, though it's debatable if a true MS-69 exists for this date in business strike form. The top population figures published by PCGS and NGC reflect the rarity, with just a handful of submissions reaching this level. If you happen to have a mint set or original roll from 1995, it might be worth taking a closer look, especially under magnification apart from high-grade coins. Errors and die varieties are the other major factor that can drive up the value of a 1995 half dollar. Some of the most sought-after errors include offsetter strikes, double strikes, broad strikes, clip planchets, and wrong planchet errors, such as a half dollar struck on a quarter blank. These kinds of mistakes are rare, but do occur from time to time, and when authenticated, can bring in hundreds or thousands of dollars. For example, an off-center strike with significant design displacement can be worth over $500, depending on the severity and eye appeal. There have also been reports of double die obverse errors, although none have been confirmed as significant for the 1995 half dollar in the same way they are for, say, the 1955 or 1972 Lincoln cents. Still, collectors hunt for any minor double dies or repunched mint marks, which can create niche interest and premiums. Errors are especially valuable when combined with high grades, making such coins doubly rare. Now, let's talk about how you can determine whether your 1995 half dollar might be worth more than face value. First, check the mint mark. Coins from Philadelphia will have a P, and Denver will have a D. Proofs from San Francisco will carry an S. Next, examine the coin's condition. Does it have a strong strike, clean surfaces, no visible scratches or dings? That's a good start. You'll want to use a magnifying glass, preferably 10x or more, to check for fine details. Look at the luster and the fields. If it looks pristine, it might be worth submitting to a grading service. Then check for errors. Is the rim complete? Is the image centered? Are there any odd textures or misalignments? If something looks strange, it might be a valuable error. Finally, compare your coin to auction results online. Sites like Heritage Auctions, eBay, or PCG's Price Guide can give you a ballpark idea of what similar coins are selling for. Just remember, condition is everything, and certified grading is often the key to unlocking full value. Some collectors dismiss modern coins like the 1995 half dollar, believing only old coins have real value. But that's not the whole story. In reality, modern coins in exceptional condition are extremely difficult to find, especially from circulation. That rarity can translate into impressive investment returns. The key is being selective, cherry-picking the best examples, targeting top population coins, and paying attention to the grading census. If you're thinking of investing in modern coinage, start with coins you can afford and build up from there. Don't expect every 1995 half dollar to be a gold mine, but if you enjoy the hunt and learn to recognize value, you can absolutely profit from modern coins. Proof coins, mint errors, and top-grade business strikes all have their place in a balanced portfolio. And remember, coins like the $3,000 1995 D weren't lucky finds. They were preserved, stored, and submitted carefully. That's what separates pocket change from prized possessions. So there you have it, the story of the most expensive 1995 half dollar, a seemingly ordinary coin that under. The next up, the 1996 United States half dollar, and how certain examples of this coin have become incredibly valuable to collectors around the world. Grab your magnifying glass, because you're about to learn how a coin you might have overlooked could be a hidden treasure. Before we talk about the 1996 coin in particular, we need to step back and understand the Kennedy half dollar series. Introduced in 1964, just months after President John F. Kennedy's assassination, this coin was not only a tribute, but a national symbol of mourning and honor. It replaced the Franklin half dollar and quickly became a favorite among Americans. At first, it was minted in 90% silver, then reduced to 40% silver from 1965 to 1970, and eventually to a copper-nickel clad composition from 1971 onward. Over the decades, the Kennedy half dollar saw declining use in circulation, largely due to its size and the diminishing role of coinage in daily transactions. But collectors never lost interest. In fact, the U.S. Mint began producing special collector-only versions, especially in proof sets and mint sets. By 2002, the half dollar was no longer issued for general circulation and was only made available through collector purchases. But back in 1996, the half dollar was still being minted for both circulation and collectors, and this is where things get interesting. The 1996 Kennedy half dollar may look like any other modern coin at first glance. Minted in both Philadelphia and Denver for general circulation, and also in San Francisco for proof coins, it bears the familiar profile of JFK on the obverse and the presidential seal on the reverse. Over 45 million were struck in total, more than 24 million in Philadelphia and over 16 million in Denver. On top of that, the San Francisco Mint produced over 2 million proof coins, both clad in silver. So, with tens of millions made, how could any of them be considered rare, let alone valuable? Well, as with most modern coins, the true value lies in the details: mint errors, condition, special varieties, and the coin's grading. When it comes to 1996 Kennedy half dollars, there are a few standout specimens that have driven up interest and prices in the collector's market. And some of these examples have sold for over $4,000 at auction. But how does such a common coin command that kind of money? Let's explore to the untrained eye. Most 1996 Kennedy half dollars look identical. But coin collectors, or numismatists, know how to spot the subtle differences that make one coin worth 50 cents and another worth a small fortune. One of the biggest factors is grade. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale developed by the Sheldon scale. A coin graded MS-70, mint state 70, is considered perfect, showing no signs of wear or imperfection even under magnification. The majority of coins struck for circulation fall into the MS-60, MS-65 range. But the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. There are examples of 1996 Kennedy half dollars graded MS-68 or MS-69 that have sold for thousands of dollars. These ultra-high grades are rare, particularly for circulation strikes, due to handling, bag marks, and contact with other coins. One 1996 P half dollar graded MS-68 by Piece GS sold for over $2,800, and a 1996 D in MS-68 fetched nearly $3,000. These high grades are extremely difficult to find and are often the result of coins being pulled directly from mint sets and handled with extreme care. But grading isn't the only factor. Mint errors and varieties play a massive role too. Coins that were misstruck, double-struck, or struck on the wrong planchet can be worth significant amounts. For example, a 1996 half dollar struck on a quarter planchet or a planchet intended for another denomination can become a rare and desirable piece. Similarly, die errors like double dies, where the design appears to be stamped twice slightly offset, can command premiums depending on the severity and visibility of the doubling. Then, there's the matter of proof coins, particularly the 1996 silver proof Kennedy half dollar, which was only available as part of a special collector set. These coins were struck with specially polished dies and planchets, resulting in a mirror-like finish. While not rare in the traditional sense, examples graded PR 70 deep cameo by grading services like Piece GS or NGC can fetch between $200 to $500 or more, depending on demand. Let's now turn to the star of the show, the most expensive 1996 half dollars ever sold. While number 1996 Kennedy half dollar has yet to break six figures, unlike some earlier series or ultra-rare coins, the top examples have nonetheless shocked collectors with their final hammer prices. In 2018, a 1996 D Kennedy half dollar graded MS-68 by Piece GS sold at auction for $4,230. That's over 8,000 times its face value. What made this coin so special? It wasn't a mint error. It wasn't a proof. It was simply struck so cleanly and preserved so perfectly that its grade placed it among the finest known examples of its type. There may only be a handful in such a grade, and collectors who are building high-end registry sets are willing to pay a premium for top pop coins. Another standout sale was a 1996 P half dollar, also in MS-68 condition, which fetched nearly $3,000. Again, not due to an error or special strike, but simply because of its pristine, almost flawless surface. The demand for these ultra-grade modern coins has grown in recent years, driven by registry competitions and collectors trying to complete the most perfect set possible. Even among proof coins, the 1996 silver proof in PR 70 deep cameo has seen prices north of $500. While more common than circulation strike MS-68 Perfect proofs are still difficult to find and are often snapped up quickly by high-end collectors, so how do you know if your 1996 half dollar is one of the valuable ones? Here are a few tips. First, check the mint mark. You'll find on the obverse, just below Kennedy's neck. A P indicates Philadelphia, a D indicates Denver, and an S is for San Francisco. Most of the highly valuable examples come from Philadelphia and Denver in ultra-high mint state grades. Next, inspect the coin's condition. Does it look brand new? Are there scratches, dings, or wear on Kennedy's cheek or hair? If it appears near perfect, it might be worth submitting to a grading service like PieceGS or NGC. You can also look for errors and varieties. A strong magnifying glass or microscope can help you spot doubled letters, off-center strikes, or other anomalies. Even minor errors can add value, but significant ones like planchet errors or die caps can be worth hundreds or more. And finally, consider getting your coin graded. Authentication by a reputable third-party service can significantly increase the coin's value. The cost of grading varies, but if you think you have a top-grade specimen, it can be well worth the investment. So, what have we learned? The 1996 Kennedy half dollar is, on the surface, a common coin produced in the tens of millions and used in everyday transactions. But under the right circumstances, it becomes a collector's prize. Whether it's a circulation strike in pristine MS-68 condition, a flawless proof, or a dramatic mint error, this coin has proven that even modern coins can carry serious value.